Can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already occurred? The latest research in neuroscience says it's absolutely possible. You can change your brain just by thinking differently. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Let's begin. Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Joe here. I hope by now you have practiced that meditation as a experiment to see then, by making internal changes, if it begins to produce some effects in your body or in your life. Now, I want you to know that I've been at this a very long time. And I want you to understand that when I get stuck in my life, when I have to make changes, significant changes for myself to adapt to a new life that I'm stepping into, that I go back to these very basics that I'm teaching you. I take out a piece of paper and I start thinking about the thoughts that I've been thinking, the behaviors or actions that I want to change. I start looking at myself during the day and what emotions I'm feeling and living by. And then I want to study great people in history. I want to learn their qualities and attributes. And I want to think the way they think. I want to behave the way they behave. I want to feel the feelings that they have felt. And the more knowledge you have, the more you learn about something, the more likely you will be to construct a better model. Now, what do I mean by that? I do this all the time because I'm interested in evolving myself. That's what plasticity is about. So when you ask yourself a question, what would it be like to be healthy? What would it be like to be happy? What would it be like to be more evolved, to be more mystical, to be more empowered? When you ask that question, you turn on that creative center in your brain called the frontal lobe. Now, that frontal lobe is 40% of your entire brain. It's the newest piece of machinery in the human brain that allows us to create. And it's the executive, it's the boss, it's the CEO, it's the symphony leader. When you ask that frontal lobe question, what would it be like? You turn on that creative center. Now, what most people don't know is the frontal lobe, because it is the executive, has connections to the entire brain. The CEO knows what everybody's doing. So you ask the question, what would it be like to be wealthy or to be healthy? Or happy? Now the frontal lobe's got to answer the question. So it only has a certain number of, or a certain amount of resources stored in the brain. And the resources are the things you've learned intellectually or the experiences that you've had in your life. So when you ask the question, what would it be like to be wealthy? What would it be like to be healthy? The frontal lobe's got to answer the question, so it starts looking out over the landscape of the entire brain for associated neurological networks of things you've learned or experienced in your life, and it begins to call them up. It begins to activate them. And when it gets enough circuits activated, those circuits begin to fire in tandem. And when they start firing in tandem, all of a sudden you get a picture in your mind, and that's called intention. So it makes sense then, the more you learn, the more you study, the more you fill your brain with knowledge, the more resources or more raw materials you are using to create a better experience. The more experiences that you've had, the more you can call on those circuits to build a bigger model. So when the brain all of a sudden freezes a frame, a picture, and you're selecting a new potential in the quantum field, a new possibility, as I said, when you do that properly, when you hold that clear intention and all of a sudden your brain starts to animate it, it starts to bring it to life. And the next thing you know, you start feeling the emotions of that future. You're combining a clear intention with an elevated emotion, and that process, thought being the vocabulary of the brain, feeling being the vocabulary of your body, and how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. You're changing your state of being from the same familiar person thinking and feeling a certain way to thinking and feeling another way. Now, the stronger the emotion that you feel from some experience in your life, the more altered you feel inside of you, whatever the event was, whether it was a shock, a betrayal, a loss, an event that caused you to all of a sudden break out of your normal chemical continuity. The moment something changes you from your environment and you feel altered, that change in your internal chemistry causes you to wake up and pay attention to what's causing it. And the moment you do that, the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot, and that's called a long-term memory. And that memory is embossed in the neural architecture. The problem is people think within the circuitry of that past experience, and they feel within the emotions of that event as well. And so most people start their day and their life living every single day in the same familiar state of being. So then you say to the person, well, why are you so angry? Why are you so afraid? Why are you so sad? Why are you suffering so much? They'll tell you, I am this way because of some experience or some experience in my life that's happening that's keeping me feeling this way. Which means then one event in a person's life or a series of events in a person's life has changed them biologically into a state of being. And what they're really saying is, since those series of events, I haven't been able to change since. So then you ask them, what happened? And they will recount the story, but the latest research on memory says that 50% of what we talk about in our past isn't even the truth. That means people embellish the story. They make up things just to excuse themselves from changing. They make it harder. They make the conditions more intense to say, it's impossible for me to change because of that event. And to me, that means a person's reliving a miserable life they never even had, just to reaffirm or excuse themselves from permission from changing. So then how do we change out of that state? Well, it makes sense then if you can begin to select a new possibility in the future and you get clear on what that vision is, and you begin to feel the emotions of your future. The stronger the emotion that you feel from what you're creating inside of you, the more joy or freedom or excitement you feel from that internal event that you're creating. The more you change your chemical state into an elevated state, the more you'll pay attention to the picture that you're thinking about in your mind. And you're going to begin to emboss that experience neurologically in your brain. In other words, you're going to begin to remember your future. And you're going to begin to think neurologically within the circuits of that new experience that's about to happen. And you're going to feel chemically within the emotions of that future. And how you think and how you feel is your state of being. Now, if you keep practicing this every single day, it's going to begin to become familiar to you. And the key is then when you finish your meditation, you can't get up as the same person who sat down. Now, what do I mean by that? If you finish your meditation and you feel exactly the way you just started, I would say to you, nothing really happened to you neurologically, biologically, chemically, hormonally, genetically. You're still the same person. And more than likely, when you return back into your life, your environment is going to influence how you think and feel, and you're going to return back to that old state of being. So then here's the questions. Can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already occurred? The latest research in neuroscience says it's absolutely possible. You can change your brain just by thinking differently. And can you select a new potential in the quantum field? And there are infinite potentials in the quantum field. And can you begin to emotionally embrace that future reality before it's made manifest, to such a degree that your body as the unconscious mind, being so objective, doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's producing the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone, to such a degree that your body begins to change to look like that experience has already occurred epigenetically. The latest research in epigenetics says you can change your body just by thinking differently. Now, if you practice this every single day by combining that clear intention with the elevated emotion, conditioning your body into the future emotionally, and branding that circuitry into your brain. If you keep doing this on a daily basis, every single day, there's going to be evidence in your brain and body to look like that experience has already occurred. There's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like it has already occurred, and more than likely you will be in a new state of being, and you will feel like when you finish your meditation every day. Think about this. If you got up connected to the feelings of your future when you finished your meditation every day, and you were able to maintain that modified state of mind and body throughout the entire day, you would no longer be looking for your future. Why? If you feel like your future has already happened because you're feeling the emotions of it, you wouldn't be separate from it. You wouldn't be in polarity or duality or lack, waiting for it to happen to make you feel better. You would be feeling the emotions of your future. Why would you look for it? Now, we would say then that this is the moment where you're no longer in lack or in separation. This is the moment, if you're able to maintain that state your entire day, that the synchronicities, the opportunities, the coincidences, the serendipities that begin to appear in your life means then that you are moving out of one frame of the same reality into another frame of a new reality. And you have to be able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And if you can, get ready, because unusual things will begin to happen in your life. And they will come in ways that you least expect, that you can't predict. Why? Because if you can predict them and expect them, they're nothing new. They're more of the same. They have to rock your world. They have to catch you off guard. They have to leave no doubt that what you're doing inside of you begins to produce an effect outside of you. And when you can correlate the changes that you're making inside of you with the effects you're producing outside of you, just like me in my own personal injury, I started to pay attention to what I was doing inside of me to produce those effects outside of me, and I started doing more of it. And when you start to see those events begin to happen in your life, the universe throwing breadcrumbs in your direction, telling you to follow the breadcrumbs, keep doing what you're doing, you're going to pay attention to what you did, and you're going to do it again, and you're going to believe more that you are the creator of your life by changing your thoughts and feelings instead of the victim of your life. And when those synchronicities happen, and they happen to a lot of people that do this work, the energy, the emotion that they feel, and the surprise. Now, the brain learns by mistakes and surprises, and I say we could use a few more surprises. When you're caught off guard and this event all of a sudden happens to you, and you are surprised and in awe that something just happened that you have been working on creating, and you are in the present moment more awake and more alive than you've been in a long time, you're going to remember that you created that experience. And two things will happen. The experience produces an elevated emotion of awe and worthiness and freedom and inspiration and a love for life. And that is the natural state of being. You are going to use that emotion to create your next experience. In other words, it's going to be easier for you to create the next experience because that emotion you're going to use to create the next event. The second thing that happens to numerous people, when they are so caught up in the present moment, so awake and so alive that they're realizing that they are the creator of their life, they look back at their entire life, all the things they regretted, all the circumstances that they wish they could have changed. They look back at their entire past, and they don't want to change one thing in their past because it brought them to the present moment. And that is the moment the past no longer exists.